Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we are discussing logic apps in detail. In today's demonstration, we will discuss how do we run the SQL operation on your logic app using the SQL connectors, which is a built-in connector available in logic app. Hi, my name is Rakesh Suryavanshi and you are watching Be a Learner. For this demonstration, we have a SQL server created in Azure portal, and in that SQL server, we have a SQL database, which is a past instance of the database server in Azure. Now, that database would have the table, store procedure and all, which we'll be creating for this particular demonstration. And that database instance will be used from the logic app. And this is the logic app which we have created. It is a type of a standard logic app, which we'll be using to define our workflows. Let's first of all set up the SQL Server database instance, all the database structure, store procedure and all in our SQL DB instance. For this, I have a SQL script which I'll be using, and this is one of the very simplest script for this particular demonstration, just to give you an idea how the connectivity and setup works. So here in the Visual Studio Code, I have the SQL script which I'll be using for this particular demonstration. In this script, I'm creating an item table which has 4 columns: item ID, which is auto generated as a unique GUID identifier. Then we have a SKU, which is representing the unique code for the item, and then description and the status, which is of type integer. So let's first of all use this particular script to define the item table in our SQL database. For that, I'm going to first of all connect to the SQL server using the username and password which I have on this particular database server instance. So I'm onto the SQL server. I'll go to the query editor on the SQL Server portal instance. I'll provide the login credentials for this particular SQL server that has logged into my database instance. At the moment, I do not have any table or the store procedure, as you can see from this particular blade. I'll run that create table query to create the items table onto this particular database. The query got successfully executed. Now, if I refresh again, then I should have the item table available. As you can see that we have the item table on our database instance, which is a SQL demo database instance. Next, I'll run this insert into command to insert a default record. So for this demonstration, I'm going to insert this particular SKU code as an item, and this is an item description, which is of, let's say, some t-shirt code. Okay, so simply I'll overwrite this particular query. I'll run the query. A query got executed with 1 row affected, as we have inserted 1 record. Now, if I run the SQL select statement on this particular table, then I should have the 1 record retrieved. And you can see that we have the unique identifier generated because our ID column was auto generated. And now this is the SKU which we have inserted with this particular status value. So our database is, from the table point of view and from record point of view, is ready. What I'll do is I'll also create a store procedure which says that get item by SKU ID. So this is my store procedure, and the code of the store procedure is create a store procedure USP get items by SKU ID. SKU is going to be a parameter which it will accept, and then it will return a star from the item table where SKU ID is the given SKU ID. Let me execute this store procedure. Store procedure got successfully executed. Now, if I refresh this, then I should have a store procedure available. I can try and get this particular store procedure run right here in this particular query window to test it, but I'm sure it will work fine. Okay, so this is the simplest one. Now, the SQL database part is completed. Let's move to our logic app portion to design our workflow. So from here, I'll go to the logic app and I'll go to the workflow, and we'll create our very first workflow, as this is a new logic app. I'll add new workflow. I'll call it as SQL demo. I'll keep the workflow as the stateful type so that we can see the history of all our runs which we are going to perform. I'll go to the designer of this particular workflow to design this workflow. You can design, we need a trigger to start the workflow. So this is a very first entry point, which should be a trigger. So we need to define a trigger. For this demonstration, I am going to use the trigger as the time-based trigger, but you can choose any trigger type. First of all, I'll select this trigger type as a schedule to select a time-based trigger, and I'll say recurrence, and then I'll say every 15 months because I don't want to run every 15 seconds for sure. Now I'll add an action tab now to select the SQL connector, and if you look at carefully, I'm using a built-in connector. Do remember to use the built-in connector as much as possible in your logic app workflow. That will save the cost of your logic app execution. So it is always important to select a right connector while defining your logic app. I'm going to use this SQL built-in connector. It has number of actions available. So for the demonstration, a very first option we are going to use is get rows option to select all the records available in that particular table. So I'll use this option to start with it, as this is a very first workflow in this particular logic app, and we do not have any connector setup, which is a SQL type of connector setup. So we need to set up the connection for the very first time. I'll give it a name as SQL connection. That's going to be a built-in connection, or it's not a managed connector. So there are three options available here: is the connection string type, manage identity, and the active directory authentication. For the demonstration, I'm going to use the connection string type. To get the connection string, I'll go to the connection string, I'll go to my SQL server. In that SQL server, we have the connection string. I'll copy that connection string. And of course, this connection string does not have password, so I'll use my notepad to provide the password on this particular connection string. So here is the connection string that will create a connection. Now connection is ready. Now this get row step or the connector requires the table name to be provided, and then the parameter needs to be provided. What parameter it will be, it's asking. Let's we will have a look at. First of all, we need to provide the name of the table. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll define the parameter. I'll call it as a table name, the name of the parameter, and I'll give the name of the table as parameter name as this. Okay, similarly we will call the store procedure parameter, and name of our store procedure is this. So we'll call it as a sp get items. So here we have defined two parameters, one for store procedure, one for table name. I'll close it down. Here now we'll use this parameter, which is the name of the table. Let's see what is the next parameter we have. If you would like to use any where condition while selecting the record, then you can specify the where condition with this particular parameter. Let's say where SKU code is equal to this, or where item status is equal to this. So if you would like to use this where condition, you can use it. Let's say in case you have so much of data and you want to filter out that data. For now, we just have one record, so I'm not going to use any where condition for the demonstration. I'll save this and we'll quickly run this particular demonstration whether we are able to fetch the record from the given table or not. So workflow is saved successfully. Let me run that. So our SQL query has executed, our logic app workflow is successfully executed. Now if I open that, and if you look at that, we are successfully able to get the result as in one item, and that's the item which we have inserted with that SKU code. So that proves our SQL connector with a get operation. Remember that we haven't provided any filter condition, so it's going to return all records. So be careful about using this particular operation. Now if we go back to this particular logic app, just to have a look at what configuration it has added. So if I go to the connection, here in this connection provider, as we are using the built-in connectors, and this is the connector which we have added. This is the detail of the connector with all the connection string. Obviously this you can read it from the SQL server. Now if you go to the JSON view, at the moment we are using the service built-in connectors. That's why all our connector details are added here as in the SQL type, and this is the name of the connector which we have provided, the parameter value which is being added to your, which means the connection string value has been added to your configuration section as an app setting. And this is the provider of the connection, which is a provider type is a SQL type. Okay, this has been added when we have added to the connection. Now this has demonstrated successfully the very first part, which is the select part or the get part. Now let's look at our next set of example, which is of running the store procedure. So I'll go to the designer. I'll again use the store procedure option or same the SQL connector option to execute the store procedure. Or let me have a look at first of all the insert row. We'll insert the record. Let's say we are going to use the same table name column which we have added. So I'll use the table name. I'll select the parameter set columns, what all columns you would like to set. We'll go to our set of column section. So we know that we have the SKU code. So SKU code is something I'm going to provide as unique SKU code. Now this is going to be a description. So I'll use the description as some value of added, some value added. Now status, next column is the status. So we know that the status column we have. So these are the three columns which requires to run the insert procedure. Okay, once that's going to be inserted, what we'll do is we will add this inserted record or the output of the inserted into a data operation just to see what exactly value we have. So here's the input type. I'll get the result or the inserted record, which is this particular step as a result into this particular step, which is a compose step. So now compose step will have the inserted row detail. Okay, let's have a look at that and save this particular step and run our SQL demo. So I will run that SQL demo. So the run is successful, but for the very first time, it has took around 4 minutes to connect. Maybe some issue at the connectivity point of view. So if I rerun again, that should not take much time again to insert the records. As you can see that next time when I run, it has just taken almost 2 seconds. So it was just an intermittent issue. But let's open that and see how many records, see how it has worked. So very first step, as it was previous step, we are able to select all record. In this case, of course, there were 2 records because now in the table we have 2 records. So we have received 2 records. Again, we have inserting a third record, which is this one. So we have inserted a description, SKU code, which is this one, and the status code, of course. So here, that's the output of the store procedure insert step, and this output we have received here in the compose section, right? So we have run, we have demonstrated get, which is a select, and then insert. Now have a look at the store procedure option now. So for this, I'll go to the designer, I'll add a new step, and I'll select the store procedure option with the same connector, SQL connector, execute procedure, and I'll select the procedure name, and I'll provide the value as the name of the sp get item variable. Here is the parameters. We need to provide the parameters because we know that our store procedure requires the SKU code to be provided. So I'll provide the SKU code, and then I'll use this option. So let's see, or basically I'll use some random ID SKU code as the random GUID. Now let's use this GUID as an SKU code, for example, so that we have this SKU code. Now what I'm going to do here in this case, I'll use the SKU code of the previous SKU code which we have inserted, so that we are selecting the record which we have inserted in the previous step. So to do that, I'm going to use this compose output step. I'll copy this, and here I'll use it here in the expression, and output I'll use the SKU code, because I know that we have the SKU code values available here. That's it. So that will run the store procedure with this parameter, and the value of the parameter is going to be the value of the SKU code which we have inserted here in the insert step. Okay, let's save this. So now we have 3 different steps to run into the SQL option. Let's have a look at this if it works fine. Again, this has successfully completed, but as we have saved for the very first time, it has taken the time. But as I've demonstrated in the previous case, if you rerun again, this won't take much of the time. I can rerun again just to show you again how much time it is taking to rerun. As you can see, it has just completed in 347 milliseconds, all 3 steps together, which is a good performance, I would say. So let's have a look at our demonstration, how it works. So this is again, I won't take much time here because we have already seen that this is the get row operation. We have got all the records which are available. In this case, I think there are 3 to 4 records. We are inserting a new record with GUID SKU code, so we are not hard-coded the SKU code. The result, we are capturing it here in the compose step. So we have this result now with the same record we have inserted. And now we are using the store procedure, which is this store procedure. We are passing the SKU code as in parameter, the same SKU code which we have inserted to get the value of the store procedure. So when you run the store procedure option, you get the result in this particular parameter. Do remember the difference. As you can see that the parameter name is result set. So that's the name of the parameter, and it returns an array of array. So if I open this raw output, that will show you output of that particular SQL server. That's, you can see that. So result set is the field in which we have the output of your store procedure, which has an array, and inside the array you have again an array of record, because your store procedure is returning the array of records. That's why. And inside that you have the it's a multi-dimensional array basically. Now let's look at the next option available with this SQL connector. So this is an update option we are going to have to run now. For this, I'm going to use the name of the table with the same variable which we have defined in the parameters. So I'm going to use the table name, and the where condition, we are going to use the SKU code, and then again we are going to use this option which is this one, compose, and then we are going to use the compose option with the SKU code value, which would have the value of the SKU code. Now what do you want to update? Let's update a description, and I'll say that the description value, description something is updated at, let's say, we'll use a UTC time here just to show you I can use the expressions in this as well. That's I'm going to update the value, and after that let's have a look at the next one in the line what is available. So I'll use the same connector, and this time we are going to use the delete row operation. I'll use the same table name, custom value, delete, and then where condition, I'll use the SKU code, and then I will use the SKU code as in delete. So for now I'm going to use the dummy value as the SKU code, because we would like to see the updates section. So if I'm going to delete that, then updates, whatever updates we have made, we won't be able to see those updates basically. So let's save this. Now I'm going to rerun again. Let's see how much time it takes this time, because we added a new connectors. Again, it has taken approximately 4 minutes as we have saved for the very first time, and if I rerun again, it would be it will finish very effectively, I think few milliseconds. 400 milliseconds it has taken. So be mindful of that. Basically, first time you have to be little bit patient to get the updates. Now have a look at our store procedure execution. We have got the store procedure execution which has executed the result back. Now out of that we are basically running the updates to this particular updates to the item which we have inserted. So this is our update query. We are updating on this particular column with this value. This is our where condition, by the way, as you can see from here. And this is the update which we are making. It says that something is updated around this particular date and time. And after the update, we are getting the output back, which is this. And then once we have the update run, we are running the delete query. At the moment, it's not returning anything because the value of the where condition which we have provided, which is the SQ value, I have provided some hard-coded value which is not meeting the condition with the item table rows, and that's the reason it has returned nothing. But you get an idea, right? If you pass a correct value, then it will delete the rows as well. So these are the different SQL statements which you can pretty easily run on your logic app adapters to connect to your SQL database and perform the different operation onto the tables. I hope you have found this useful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you do have any questions, please do let me know in the comments box. Thanks for watching it. See you in the next video.